A couple of young Habs players will need to prove whether or not they're the real deal next season. If the Habs want to be a contending team within the next 5-6 years, we want to see some development from some young guys, including Juraj Slafkovsky, and we have some maybe secrets that'll help these guys produce at the next level. We're going to be discussing all this on this edition of Habs Digest. Hello, bonjour, ahoy, and welcome to today's news edition of Habs Digest. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, alongside my co-host, Jesse Poirier, and we are extremely close to 5,000 subs. Not going to harp on it too long. You guys have been doing amazing with the subscriptions. Thank you for the support. 5,000 is a huge milestone. We want to get there very soon. Jesse, this is interesting. I mean, these Habs need to step up for the future. There's no doubt about that. When we're talking about some of the Habs that we'll get into in this episode, if Montreal wants to be a contending team, there's a couple of guys on this team who maybe haven't quite proven enough to some fans to show that they should be these core guys through the rebuild. One guy we've kind of talked about a bit on our own, Nick Suzuki. I feel like he's proven enough to stay off this list. Just before we dive into our top three guys, what are your sort of thoughts on Nick Suzuki and whether or not he maybe should or shouldn't be included in today's video?
He absolutely should not, and that's why we did not. Nick Suzuki has absolutely proven himself 100%. Just playing this full NHL season, he's shown that he can stay healthy, he can produce with no matter what type of line mates. So we did such a great job of picking him as our captain, and he's absolutely proven himself.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the thing that we're going to get into with some of these other players is that they've had maybe one and a bit decent seasons showing that, okay, they're on the right track, but we need to see that continue into next year, and it could be very important. So without further ado, maybe a surprise to some of you guys, but we want to get him out of the way right off the bat. Look, there's no doubt in our mind that Cole Caufield is going to be a star in the NHL, a star for the Montreal Canadiens, top line winger. He's going to be a future 40-goal scorer for sure in our minds. However, when you look at the stats, again, he had that half-good season under Coach Marty St. Louis with that 23 goals, 43 points in 67 games after the abysmal start. But this year was when he really picked it up. 26 goals in 46 games. But Jesse, some concerns loom about a shoulder injury maybe affecting Caufield for the future. And again, the 26 and 46 is awesome, but in a small sample size, I don't know really how to extrapolate that. I feel like I really want to see, at minimum, 30 to 35 goals from Caufield next season. I'm already sold on him, but just for the Habs fans that aren't, we're not going to spend too long on him. What are your kind of thoughts on Caufield and what he needs to do next year?
Well, I think Cole Caufield knows exactly what he needs to do next year, and that's to really cement himself as one of the better players in the NHL, because he was asked in the exit interviews and just by the media and everything else, like, where does he feel like he really stands in terms of some of the better players? And Eric Engels, he was trying to kind of bait him onto where his thoughts were in terms of contracts and everything. As we know, that's kind of looming for the summer. And Cole Caufield said that he hasn't really proven anything yet, that he hasn't stayed healthy over the course of a season, that he really needs to do that and produce to really prove himself.
Yeah.
And you know what, Josh?
What is that?
I find that so refreshing, to be honest. It's like just to have that level of self-awareness, because we know Cole Caufield, he's not somebody that's missing in confidence, right?
No, he's not.
But he's also just being honest with himself. This is what I need to do to a little bit better to really take myself to that next level. Because you're right, Josh, in your question. It's a lot of people have been questioning him in the past. And that's why he even went a little bit later, 13th, which isn't falling too much, but still because of his size. So I think that Cole Caufield, he shouldn't be done, and he's not done proving people wrong.
I think the number of doubters is going down year by year, but you're right, Jesse. He hasn't had a full season with an offensive system that works for him, where he's been fully healthy at the NHL level yet, and next year is hopefully the year that he gets to do that. And I don't see why he can't hit 35, 40 goals next season. But again, this is going to be the year to see him break out. His inclusion in this video is not so much, he hasn't proven enough to us yet. But he hasn't proven enough to himself. We want to see a full healthy season from Caufield, and that is the first step for him being, the future superstar of the Habs. All right, guy number 2 maybe makes a bit more sense for you guys, not Cole Caufield. Again, it's Kirby Dach. Now, Kirby Dach, of course, comes to the Montreal Canadiens after a few injury-riddled and not-so-productive seasons in Chicago, despite having lots of time played with Patrick Kane and some other great forwards. But Kirby Dach comes to Montreal, and it seems to be a different man after Kent Hughes trades for him. The 6'4", 212-pound center/winger this season comes in with a career high in goals, assists, points, ties his career high in penalty minutes. He was all over the ice everywhere for Montreal this year. Learned how to use his size. But the issue I have with this, Jesse, not so much an issue with Dach, but I think if Montreal really wants to be a future contender with this core, if they don't go get someone like Pierre-Luc Dubois, I think Kirby Dach, regardless, needs to prove himself as a top 6 winger or center, depending on the situation. And I feel like a full healthy season is needed with him because his injuries maybe are a bit of a concern, especially since we've only really seen one productive season points-wise.
Well, that's it. And very much like Cole Caufield, we know if they're healthy that they will produce. At least we have a very good feeling of that for Kirby Dach. Like all the signs are showing that he's going to have a great year next year, and he just needs to develop. And we've seen players that are a little bit of late bloomers, but like you mentioned, his puck protection abilities, like he did well this year, but obviously we see he has the potential to do so much more. But like Caufield, he needs to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. Like Caufield, he hasn't went through that full season. He had that 70-game season, which obviously is respectable and an 82, 83-game schedule, but obviously the production wasn't there, which as a young player, as we all know, Kirby Dach's trajectory took him a little bit of time to get there. Mm-hmm. We still need to see him put that all together over the course of a full season. So part of this isn't just on the players, but it's also on the medical staff to do their job properly, to keep these players healthy, because if they are, they will be producing. So this isn't all on them, but of course they do play a part in this as well. But you have to feel like Kirby Dach is so motivated coming into this year, scoring that career high of 14 goals. But we need to remember that there was somebody else on this team that scored 14 goals this year, and that's Raphael Harvey-Pinard, and the difference between these players is Raphael Harvey-Pinard is a little bit older at 24 compared to 22, but he still doesn't have as much NHL experience as Kirby Dach. Mm-hmm. And we know that Dach was that first-round selection, third overall, where RHP is quite the opposite, where he's that seventh-round sort of selection. So you have to feel like if you're Kirby Dach and you're seeing RHP performing in the way that he has, that's going to really light a fire underneath you to prove yourself next season.
I think so too. And I think Kirby Dach, while he is primarily a playmaker and he drives the offense with more than just his goal scoring, he's in a lot of the same places as Harvey-Pinard on a lot of the offensive possessions. I don't see why Kirby Dach can't turn into a 20-goal, 50-assist kind of guy based on the year we saw from him this year, especially his hot start with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield. And again, guys, a reminder, this list isn't guys that were like, oh, well, I don't know about him. He still needs to prove himself. Yeah, Caufield and Dach have proven plenty, but we want to see it long term. We want to continue to see the growth, and I think if we don't see it next year, some people might get concerned, right? So we just want to see these guys take that next step, exactly what you just said, Jesse, with Kirby Dach putting it together over a full season, proving he can be a solid goal scorer, amazing playmaker, amazing sort of control player in the offensive zone. So I'm excited to see Kirby Dach and Caufield, but I'm maybe most excited for this last guy. And I don't think there's any surprise. I think anyone who looked at the title thumbnail of this video will know that Juraj Slafkovsky needs to come into discussion here. Now, Juraj Slafkovsky, of course, the 19-year-old just turned 19 a few weeks ago, 6'3", 238. Jesse, I'll let you talk about the 238 in a second, but 39 games, only 10 points, basically identical production to his Finnish league numbers the year before the draft. Of course, he went down with an injury later in the season, which is just not his fault at all. But Jesse, with Slafkovsky, when he was on the ice, a lot of the time it felt like his hockey IQ, his hockey sense just wasn't where it should be, getting caught with his head down. His shot is powerful, but it felt like he was really, really rough around the edges, and there needed to be a lot of work. Going into next season, what is the one thing you really want to see Slafkovsky improve upon where you would say, okay, this is exactly what we needed from him to be a true, solid player for this team going forward?
I want to see his mobility improve. I feel like that's one of the most important things is he knows at 238 that he's actually one of the biggest players in the NHL. So I think that the Habs development staff has really targeted this as a point that they really want to rectify. They really want to bring down his weight a little bit, which is going to help with his mobility, which is going to help with his quickness, which is also going to help him from not getting caught with his head down, right? Because when you're a moving target like that, it's much harder to get lined up in the way that we have seen from Slav. Now, we know, and the reason that we've included him on this list is that, even though we've been really patient with Juraj Slafkovsky, and with good reason, I think he's going to be a great player. Like all these players, we really believe in them. We know what they're capable of. And there's going to be increased expectations. And that's kind of the reason for this video today, is that, just as the expectations are going to be higher for the Montreal Canadiens this upcoming year, the expectations are going to be much higher for Juraj Slafkovsky as well, to see, to show really what he's capable of. Now, I believe he can do it. He needs a little bit of time, and I believe that he's doing all the right things right now to just put him in the best position possible for next year.
And not to mention, Jesse, that Montreal, in all likelihood, are going to come out of this draft with a top 5 draft pick. And if you look at some analysts, they're saying the top 5 in this draft all would have gone ahead of Slafkovsky had they been there last year. So, Slav is going to have a chip on his shoulder for sure to prove that he belongs on the Habs, especially over this, whoever ends up on the Habs, whether it's someone like Will Smith, Matvei Michkov in a few years, whatever. We don't know yet. But Slav's going to have a chip on his shoulder. He knows he needs to improve. He's exciting to watch when he's on. He's got a hard shot. He's an exciting player. The players love him. The fans love him. He just needs to put it all together, and we hope that starts next year. But that'll do it for this edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel, guys. We're almost at 5,000 subs. If you could hit that button and you haven't already, it'd really help us out. We really appreciate it. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.